The invitation to my sister Victoria's wedding sat unopened on my desk for 3 days. Its cream-colored envelope, embossed with gold leaf and sealed with the Hamilton family crest, seemed to mock me with its extravagance. I already knew what it said, or rather, what it didn't say. Miss Sophia Hamilton, your presence is not required. I'd overheard Victoria telling our mother exactly that at their weekly lunch meeting at the country club. A lunch I wasn't invited to, of course. After all, failures don't belong at the Hamilton family's preferred establishments. We can't have her there, Mother, Victoria had declared, her voice carrying across the terrace where I'd been secretly meeting with the club's manager about acquiring the property. She'll embarrass us in front of the Astors and the Vanderbilts. I mean, she works from a tiny office downtown. What would people think? If only they knew that tiny office was actually the entire top floor of Manhattan's most prestigious business tower, and that Hamilton Global Ventures, my company, had just been valued at $3.8 billion. But I'd kept that information carefully hidden, watching and waiting as my family continued to treat me like their greatest disappointment. Now, staring at the invitation I wasn't meant to receive, Victoria's assistant had sent it by mistake, much to my sister's fury. I couldn't help but smile at the venue listed in elegant script, Windsor Estates. My latest acquisition. The phone on my desk buzzed. Ms. Hamilton? The Windsor Estates management team is here for the transition meeting. Send them in, Emma. The team filed in, 12 impeccably dressed hospitality executives, all unaware that their new owner was the black sheep of one of New York's oldest families. They'd been running the venue when I purchased it through a shell company last month, right after Victoria announced her engagement. Good morning, I smiled, noting how none of them recognized my name. Let's discuss the changes we'll be making, starting with the Harrison wedding next month. The Hamilton wedding, one of them corrected. Victoria Hamilton? It's our most prestigious booking this season. The family practically owns this city. Used to own this city, I thought, thinking of all the properties and businesses I'd quietly acquired over the past 5 years. The buildings my family thought they were renting? Mine. The investment firm handling their trust funds? Also mine. And now, their precious wedding venue. Right, of course, I said smoothly. Tell me everything. For the next hour, they detailed my sister's ridiculous demands: imported roses from Holland, crystal champagne flutes from France, a guest list that read like a who's who of old money Manhattan. The budget was astronomical, though Victoria had demanded a family discount based on the Hamilton name. If she only knew. My phone buzzed again, Victoria calling for the 5th time today. I'd been ignoring her calls since she'd tried to have the accidental invitation retracted. Excuse me, I told the management team. I should take this. They filed out as I picked up the phone. Hello, Victoria. Finally, she snapped. I've been calling all morning. About that invitation. The one telling me I'm not welcome at your wedding? Don't worry, I got the message. Loud and clear. It's not personal, Sophia, she sighed with practiced condescension. But this wedding is about maintaining certain standards. We can't have someone of your position mixing with our crowd. I glanced at the Forbes magazine on my desk, featuring my company's latest acquisition. The Hamilton family hadn't even noticed that their various businesses were slowly being bought out by unnamed holding companies. Of course, I said smoothly. Heaven forbid your failure of a sister embarrass you in front of the Astors. Exactly. She missed my sarcasm entirely. I'm having a small dinner next week for the wedding party at Windsor Estates. Just family and close friends. Obviously, you understand why you're not invited. Obviously. I looked out my office window at the sprawling grounds of Windsor Estates, visible in the distance. I wouldn't want to embarrass you at your perfect venue. It is perfect, isn't it? She preened. The most exclusive event space in the city. Even Mother was impressed that I managed to book it. They usually have a 3-year waiting list, but the Hamilton name opens doors. I smiled, thinking of exactly why she'd gotten that booking so easily. Yes, it certainly does. Anyway, she continued, I just wanted to make sure you received the correction to the invitation situation. Can't have you showing up where you don't belong. Don't worry, Victoria. I'll be exactly where I belong on your wedding day. She hung up, no doubt already focused on some other detail of her perfect wedding. She had no idea that her failure sister had been orchestrating everything from the shadows. Emma appeared in the doorway. The management team is ready to continue, Ms. Hamilton. And your mother is in the lobby. My mother? This was unexpected. Margaret Hamilton hadn't deigned to visit my office in the 5 years since I'd left the family business to start my own company. She seems agitated. Of course she was. Mother was always agitated when anything threatened to disturb her perfectly ordered world of social hierarchies and family traditions. Send her up, I said, straightening the Forbes magazine so my mother wouldn't notice it. And hold the management team for 15 minutes. Margaret Hamilton swept into my office like a perfectly coiffed hurricane, designer heels clicking on the marble floor. She stopped short at the view from my windows. This is your office? She looked around at the sophisticated decor, so different from the shabby startup space she'd last visited. But Victoria said you worked in some tiny rental. Hello to you too, Mother. I gestured to a chair. What brings you to the part of town where failures work? She flinched at my words but sat down, her Hermes bag perched perfectly on her lap. This invitation situation, it's becoming awkward. Awkward for whom? The daughter being banned from her sister's wedding, or the family doing the banning? Don't be dramatic, Sophia. She waved her hand dismissively. Victoria is just trying to maintain certain standards. You understand, of course. After you left the family business to play entrepreneur. Play entrepreneur? I raised an eyebrow. Is that what you think I've been doing for 5 years? Well, what else would you call it? Working from some office instead of taking your rightful place at Hamilton Industries? She sniffed. Though I must say, this space is surprisingly nice. How can you afford it? If she only knew that I owned the entire building. That her precious Hamilton Industries was now secretly a subsidiary of my company. That her daughter's perfect wedding venue belonged to the child she'd written off as a failure. I manage, I said simply. Now, about Victoria's wedding. Yes, well, we think it's best if you don't attend. The Astors will be there, and the Vanderbilts, and really, darling, what would you even talk about with people of that caliber? I thought about my recent yacht party with the actual Astor heirs, where we'd discussed my company's latest tech innovations. But Mother didn't need to know about that. Not yet. Don't worry, I smiled. I won't do anything to disturb Victoria's perfect day at Windsor Estates. She stood, apparently satisfied that she'd handled the situation. Good. Though I don't know why you're smiling about it. Being banned from your own sister's wedding should be mortifying. Oh, Mother, I said softly, you have no idea what should be mortifying. As she clicked her way out of my office, I turned back to the window, watching the afternoon sun glint off Windsor Estates' famous glass dome. In 1 week, at Victoria's small dinner, everyone would learn exactly who owned their precious venue. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting everything. 1 week later, I stood in the private dining room of Windsor Estates, watching the staff prepare for Victoria's wedding party dinner. Crystal champagne flutes caught the light from the antique chandeliers I'd recently had restored to their original 19th century glory. The Hamilton family crest, which Victoria had demanded be prominently displayed, hung above the marble fireplace. Next to it, I'd instructed the staff to hang a smaller, more modern logo, the subtle emblem of my company, Hamilton Global Ventures. Everything is prepared according to your specifications, Ms. Hamilton, James, the venue manager, reported, though I must say, your sister's list of demands was quite extensive. I'm sure it was. I adjusted a place card, moving Victoria from the head of the table to a less prominent position. And the special announcement? Ready for your signal. He hesitated. Are you certain about the timing? I thought about all the family dinners where I'd been seated in the kitchen, the holiday parties where Victoria had introduced me as our sister who's going through a phase, the countless times I'd been told I was embarrassing the Hamilton name. Absolutely certain. The guests began arriving at 7, a parade of old money and older prejudices. Victoria swept in wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than what she thought I made in a month. Marcus, her hedge fund manager fiancé, trailing in her wake. This room is acceptable, she announced to no one in particular. though the flowers should have been roses, not lilies. And what is that tacky modern logo doing next to our family crest? I watched from the shadows as our parents arrived, father immediately gravitating toward Marcus to discuss the stock market. If only they knew that Hamilton Global Ventures owned controlling interest in most of their investment portfolios. Darling, Mother air-kissed Victoria's cheeks. Everything looks perfect. Though I heard the most disturbing rumor today. Someone said Windsor Estates had been sold? Victoria waved her hand dismissively. Impossible. The Windsor family would never sell. Besides, I spoke with the manager last week about some changes I want for the wedding. He assured me everything would be exactly as I demanded. Of course he did, I murmured, stepping into the light. That's what good staff does. The room fell silent. Victoria's perfect smile cracked slightly. Sophia, what are you doing here? This dinner is for important people only? I finished for her. Don't worry, I'm right where I belong. Mother stepped forward, lips pursed. Sophia, really, we discussed this. This evening is about standards, about maintaining certain appearances? I smiled. Yes, let's talk about appearances. James appeared at my side right on cue. Excuse me, everyone, before dinner begins, I have an announcement. He cleared his throat. Please join me in welcoming the new owner of Windsor Estates. Victoria laughed, the sound brittle. Owner? But that's impossible. Unless, she turned to Marcus. Darling, did you buy it for me as a wedding gift? Actually, I said quietly, he didn't. The room went perfectly still, every champagne glass frozen midair. Please welcome, James continued, Miss Sophia Hamilton, CEO of Hamilton Global Ventures and the new owner of Windsor Estates. The crash of Victoria's champagne flute shattering on the marble floor echoed through the silence. This is a joke, she whispered. It has to be. Like the joke of uninviting me to your wedding? I moved to the head of the table, my table now. Or the joke of telling everyone I work from a tiny rental office? Father found his voice first. Hamilton Global Ventures? But that's the company that's been buying up half of Manhattan, the one that acquired Sterling Financial last month. The very same, I confirmed, though that was just a small acquisition. Would you like to know what else I own? Mother sank into a chair, her perfect posture finally failing. Sophia, what have you done? What have I done? I laughed softly. I built an empire while you were all too busy looking down on me to notice. That tiny office Victoria loves to mock? It's the entire top floor of the Hamilton Tower, which I bought last year. By the way, those investment accounts you're so proud of? Managed by my company. This venue you thought was so exclusive? Mine. Victoria's face had gone from shocked to calculating. Well, this is wonderful news. Of course you must attend the wedding now. In fact, we should. Let me stop you right there. I held up a hand. I'm not interested in suddenly being worthy of your attention now that you know I'm successful. This dinner isn't about reconciliation, it's about revelation. I nodded to James, who began distributing folders to each guest. What's this? Marcus asked, opening his folder and going pale. Documentation, I said simply, of every time you and Victoria used company funds for personal expenses, every questionable transaction you've hidden from the SEC. Every instance of tax evasion your precious hedge fund has committed. He dropped the folder like it was on fire. You can't prove. I can prove everything. Hamilton Global Ventures owns 51% of your fund now. We've had access to all your records for months. Victoria stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. You would destroy your own sister's fiancé? You stopped treating me like a sister long ago, I reminded her. Besides, I'm just maintaining certain standards. Isn't that what this family is all about? Mother was frantically flipping through her folder. These properties, these businesses. All mine, I confirmed. Every building you thought you were renting, every company you thought was independently owned. I've spent 5 years building something extraordinary while you were all too busy mocking my little startup to notice. Father cleared his throat. Now, Sophia, surely we can discuss this like family. Family? I cut him off. Was it family when you told the board I was too irresponsible to handle the business? When you gave Victoria my shares because she understood our world better? I gestured to the room around us. This is my world now. I understand it perfectly. The wedding, Victoria whispered. All the plans. Will proceed exactly as scheduled, I assured her, with one small change. I produced a new seating chart. I'll be sitting at the head table, next to the Astors, who, by the way, are major investors in my company. We had the most fascinating discussion about it on my yacht last month. Mother's hands were shaking. Your yacht? The one Victoria said I couldn't possibly afford to rent, let alone own? Yes, that one. though I have 3 now. Success does compound, doesn't it? The room was silent except for the sound of papers rustling as my family continued to discover just how thoroughly I'd outmaneuvered them. As for the venue, I continued, don't worry about that family discount you demanded, Victoria. Consider it my wedding gift, though the terms have changed slightly. I produced a new contract. The venue is yours for the wedding, but afterward, it's being converted into the headquarters of my charitable foundation. We'll be helping other entrepreneurs who've been told they're not good enough. Marcus was still staring at his folder. The SEC will be very interested in your records. I agreed, unless, of course, you'd like to negotiate. I'm willing to bury the evidence, for a price. Name it, he said quickly. Your resignation, effective immediately, and a public statement about why you're stepping down. I smiled. Something about maintaining certain standards. Victoria finally found her voice again. You would ruin us? Your own family? No, Victoria, you ruined yourselves. I'm just showing you exactly who you've been looking down on all these years. I stood, smoothing my designer dress, one that cost more than her entire wedding. Now, shall we have dinner? I believe these are your seats. I pointed to the far end of the table, the less important end, as you always say. The next 2 hours were deliciously uncomfortable. My family picked at their food while I detailed exactly how I'd built my empire under their noses. Every dismissive comment they'd made, every time they'd excluded me from family events, every instance of mockery, I'd used it all as fuel. The wedding will proceed as planned, I announced as dessert was served. Consider it my gift to you, Victoria. One last chance to be the center of attention before your fiancé's scandal breaks. You wouldn't, she whispered. Like you wouldn't ban your sister from your wedding? I raised an eyebrow. We all make choices, Victoria. You chose to treat me like I was beneath you. I chose to prove you spectacularly wrong. As the shell-shocked family filed out later that evening, Mother turned back one last time. Was any of this necessary? Couldn't you have just told us about your success? Would you have believed me? I asked quietly. Or would you have dismissed it as another example of me playing entrepreneur? She had no answer. The wedding, when it happened 3 weeks later, was everything Victoria had dreamed of. Perfect flowers, perfect music, perfect setting, but the whispers followed her down the aisle. Whispers about her fiancé's hasty resignation, about the venue's mysterious new owner, about the Hamilton family's changing fortunes. I sat in my rightful place at the head table, watching my sister's perfect day unfold in my perfect venue. The Astors did attend, though they spent most of their time discussing business opportunities with me. The Vanderbilts were there too, eager to talk about possible collaborations with Hamilton Global Ventures. Victoria's toast to her new husband was brief, her hands shaking slightly as she remembered what would happen once their honeymoon ended. Marcus couldn't meet anyone's eyes, knowing his career was over. But my favorite moment came when the venue manager raised his glass for a final announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, he called out, please join me in thanking our gracious host, the owner of Windsor Estates and CEO of Hamilton Global Ventures, Ms. Sophia Hamilton. The silence that fell over the reception was perfect. Sometimes success isn't about proving people wrong, sometimes it's about letting them discover exactly how wrong they've been all along. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't just owning the venue, it's owning everything they thought you couldn't have. Victoria and Marcus left for their honeymoon the next day, flying commercial instead of private as planned. Their accounts had been frozen pending the SEC investigation. Mother and father retreated to their summer home, only to discover I owned that too. And me? I had an empire to run. Success, after all, is the best revenge. But I did send Victoria one final wedding gift, a framed copy of the invitation she'd tried to retract, mounted next to the deed to Windsor Estates. The note attached read simply, some failures exceed all expectations. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in the revenge itself, it's in watching people realize exactly who they've been underestimating all along. The end.